Okay, so today I'm going to go over changing spark plugs on a 4.0 Jeep motor. And really what needs to be done here is on each of these coil packs there's going to be a bolt on either side, and those all need to come out. It appears that a 1/2-inch wrench or a socket drive will take those out, so we're going to get after it here. And there's how many of them is there here? 1, 2, 3, 4, I believe. There's 2 that are hiding behind your heater lines. I'll get a light here in a bit so we can really see what's going on. So anyway, we'll get at it then. I want to make a note of this here on the back. The final bolt is hidden under this this bracket that just sits on the valve cover bolt, and that just comes right off and out of the way, and it is right there. So anyway, those 4 come out and off it goes. So here we go. Now when you get these off, you just simply pull right up on the coil pack rail here, and it should just pop right off real easy. So, and I wanted to also mention, this is kind of a no-no. You always want to disconnect one of your battery cables here before you go through with doing any of this, so you don't hurt any electrical components. Oftentimes when you're working on modern cars, you'll run into where some things are in the way, and what you can do to keep things kind of out of the way is, like these heater hoses, is to kind of bungee them off and away from the point of where you're trying to work. So this coil pack line here has an electrical connection in the back, so if I can avoid unhooking that, I will, just for the sheer location of it way under the cowl. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is get that moved out of the way like I have here, and then just go straight for the plugs. So here we go. I wanted to make a point here on why platinum plugs should be avoided from use. My BlackBerry is not so good here, but you can see that this Bosch platinum plug doesn't have a tip left. Well, see, platinum plugs, they run really well when they're running, but what happens is when this tip wears away, it increases the spark plug gap, dramatically. Now what happens when that gap is increased is it puts a tremendously greater strain on your coil system to jump the gap, and sometimes it will actually ground itself out inside the coil system and burn them up instead of jumping the plug gap. Or it'll do a bunch of crazy things like jumping through plug wires and everything else. So I always recommend going with standard plugs, maybe the Motorcraft or Autolite copper cord plugs, just your standard style of plug. I've really seen to do the best, and I mean, I use them in everything. So even in this motor over here, in this real rowdy engine, it uses standard plugs, and they're just as good, if not better. Okay, so I got all the plugs out, and they all look about like this, where there's no tip to them whatsoever left, so you know that wasn't running right at all. I'm going to go ahead and replace it with the Autolite copper cores. I've never had a problem running these plugs. I run them in everything, so they do pretty darn well. And on these Jeeps, I believe these get a gap to 35, so that should be what you gap them to. Usually they come pre-gapped to 35, and you can go with that, or you can just get a gapper, which are like less than $1 usually, and check it and gap it yourself. I also recommend putting some anti-seize on these threads, as this is a cast iron head, and these plugs can get in there, corrode in there real well. It's more important with aluminum heads, but they could still rust together pretty easily. So there you have it. I wanted to make a note here that when you tighten down any spark plugs, you want to be sure to not make them too You know, you don't have to tighten it down gorilla tight. You know, you want it to be nice and snug and tight, but you know, don't put all your might into it, because what's likely to happen is you'll pull the threads out of your head, and then that head is essentially junk, and you pretty much just cost yourself a pretty hefty bill. So, you know, be mindful when tightening up spark plugs that, you know, they need to be snug, but, you know, don't go gorilla tight on them. So, there you go. Now, once you got everything squared away and your battery cable hooked back up, you're ready to fire it up. What you want to do when you put this rail on is make sure that all your boots go on over the plugs. You really want to watch for the back ones there. And again, the same deal with these bolts. You want to tighten them pretty snug, but not so tight that you crack this plastic rail piece or anything, or maybe it's metal, but you really don't want to damage any of that. So, you know, snug enough to get the job done, but not too tight. So there you have it, and you got new plugs in your Jeep and it should run well. So you just fire it right up. And she runs nice and smooth when you're done. Imagine that. So again, real nice and smooth. So again, you want to steer clear of plugs